Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a conversation with NUS President Nurturing a Forward-Looking University, organized by NUS Alumni Relations. Before we begin this program, please take note of the following. This session is being recorded and will be made available on NUS Alumni Relations website within a week. NUS Alumni Relations and its event partners may use some or all of these images in their publications, digital channels, or marketing channels. Prior to the Q&A session, participants' video and audio are disabled to minimize background interference. Please post any questions you may have in the chat window. Your questions will be reviewed by the administrator and may be grouped with similar questions to be answered. If you require technical assistance, please message the administrator via the chat window. This afternoon, we are pleased to have with us NUS President Professor Chye to share the latest on NUS new initiatives and strategies to stay ahead as a forward-looking university. Joining him for today's discussion are NUS student leaders, the NUS Student Union President, Ms. Wee Suen, and the Graduate Student Society President, Mr. Gokul. Without further ado, I shall pass the time over to NUS President to begin today's session. Professor Tan, please.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. Now, thanks to a group of alumni who has asked me about the latest developments in the NUS, and for me to sort of share some of these important developments to the broader alumni. These changes have been seeded over the last few years, and we are pushing it in a big way in this coming year. So let me just briefly go through some of these key changes and to articulate the ideas on why there is a need for us to change. Right. So I sort of titled this as learning priorities for this year, but it will take many years to refine the system, especially the pedagogies that will be put in place. The key driver is really that, and we have acknowledged this for a long time, we are living in a VUCA world. And VUCA is a shorthand acronym for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And COVID-19 has accentuated all these four components. It has made the world even more VUCA. We are very mindful, of course, of the impact of the fourth industrial revolution. And this has been in the making in the last few years. And that's one key reason why we have decided to put lifelong learning as a central feature of our educational framework. And COVID-19 has also speed up or accelerated digitization in all domains of living. All right, the fact that all of us can engage through a webinar, I think is just one impact of COVID-19. So our educational framework is a good one and has been refined over the last 20 to 25 years, ever since we adopt a hybrid system that mirrors a little bit of the US system and also a little bit of the UK system. And we have built 5 key components. Without doubt, the academic component, which remains strong. We have now a wide array of global and experiential opportunities, as well as internships in the industries. In fact, 70% or more of our students would have done at least one internship, and many have done 2 internships. And in some courses, such as business analytics, cybersecurity, and data science and analytics, students are required to spend up to 1.5 years as an intern in the same company. And 3 years ago, we have doubled down on lifelong learning because we see that moving ahead, in order to thrive in a more uncertain and very volatile environment, the capacity to learn is actually very critical. And what we can do in the 4 years in the university would not suffice for a career span that can run to 45 to 50 years. And finally, entrepreneurship, and more in light of trying to get our students to be more adventurous, to take more risks, and to be able to embrace failures. That has also been a part of the training at NUS. So these are all good. And in 2018, we initiated the Lifelong Learners Program, or the L3 program. And the concept is that university is here, and we would like our students and graduates to keep in mind that we will be here for their continual upgrading and learning, running even to 40 or even 50 years. So we came up with a 20-year commitment for all incoming graduates from 2018. Now, that doesn't mean that we do not look at graduates who are more senior, but it is more a phased approach. And the Lifelong Learners Program, in the initial conception, we want to at least provide it to a group of learners. And if you look at the demography of NUS alumni, 50% of our alumni are under 40 years old. So we cater to one half at least. Come this August, students to the 4 faculties: Faculty of Engineering, School of Design and Environment, would undergo a common curriculum. And the common curriculum would, if you look at the bottom right part of the diagram, comprises of 15 modules, which is roughly about 1.5 years. And the common curriculum blends design and engineering together. Last year, we have also announced a College of Humanities and Sciences. That also put the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences and the Faculty of Science on a structure that is quite similar to engineering and design and environment. And the common curriculum for students in the College of Humanities and Sciences comprise 13 modules. Now, these 3 sort of components that you see in this diagram, the major requirements, which basically is the requirement for a chosen specialization. So in the College of Humanities and Sciences, this major requirement could be, say, mathematics, where I come from, or psychology or philosophy, right? Common curriculum will be, as the name implies, what is common to everyone in that college. Or if you see the diagram on the left, it's for the School of Design and the Faculty of Engineering undergraduates. And unrestricted electives is a powerful way that provides freedom for students to dabble in other disciplines, and hopefully even outside their faculty. Now, this change in curriculum structure would impact 4 main faculties in the initial implementation. And these are Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, Faculty of Science, as well as the Faculty of Engineering and the School of Design and Environment. Together, these 4 faculties take in 4,300 or so students every year. And that means that about 2/3 of our incoming cohort will be exposed to this. Now, this common curriculum is our very first strategy of providing a very broad-based intellectual foundation for our graduates to have a lifetime of learning. Because presumably, we anticipate that our graduates would need to repivot every few years. And that broad intellectual foundation will give them exposure to many more disciplines than is currently actually exposed to. So that's the first step, a broad intellectual foundation. And if you look at the unrestricted electives, that 12 modules or 10 modules allows our students to pick specializations beyond their faculty. So one important benefit of this common curriculum is that our students go into these faculties without having to decide which major to choose. So currently, for instance, a student wanting to do psychology would have to be admitted into Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. A student wanting to do electrical engineering would have to be admitted into the Faculty of Engineering. But come this August, students are actually admitted to either the college or to this common curriculum by design as well as engineering. And after they have done the common curriculum, they can choose their majors. So after you have actually, you are not admitted directly to the faculty, but you can choose your specialization after you have been exposed, maybe by about 1.5 years of courses or modules in the common curriculum. All right, and that's a very powerful flexibility, and which brings us to the next point. The change in the curriculum structure allows for multiple pathways. So we want our students not to just simply focus in one particular area of specialization. Specialization is important, but specialization also introduces risk. And we want to allow our students to at least have more than one specialization, which gives them more chances of repivoting in case there's a need. So we would have many choices for our students, and we will want to encourage our students to do a second major. An example is that someone in the College of Humanities and Sciences may love to have psychology as a first major, but can go to electrical engineering in the Faculty of Engineering and do electrical engineering as a second major, or go to the School of Computing and do computer science as the second major. All right. Likewise, a student in engineering, say chemical engineering, as a first major, can go to physics and do physics as a second major, or even go to arts and social science and even read history as a second major. So these are the flexible pathways that cuts across these 4 faculties that is provided under this new curriculum framework. So that's the second powerful point, encouraging and facilitating our students to have multiple specializations. And the third, and this pedagogical change, is the importance of interdisciplinary teaching and learning. Here, we are often exposed and taught in a very single disciplinary way. So many of us who have graduated from NUS and the predecessor institutions, you go to a selected discipline and you learn a lot in that particular discipline. But if you look at problems these days, problems are complex, multifaceted, and there is a need for 2 or more disciplines to come together in order to solve problems. And that's why it is important for our students to be exposed to interdisciplinarity. which is basically understanding disciplines, how they can be integrated together in terms of the approaches and solutions to come out with solutions. Obviously, I think when you talk about interdisciplinarity, it has to be very problem-driven. So we have to be able to expose our students to current problems and build them into our curriculum. And what we would like to do in the initial implementation is that our common curriculum is fully interdisciplinary. So to give you an example, College of Humanities and Sciences would have 7 very interdisciplinary module. One module would be integrated humanities. There'll be one module on integrated social sciences and a third module on Asian studies. And there will be 2 other modules on scientific inquiry, where the intention is to integrate the approaches in physics, chemistry, biology, and mathematics into a particular module. So you don't learn all these techniques individually in the individual subjects of chemistry, biology, physics, but you put them together. And this is really introducing students, for instance, to integrated science, right? So these are examples of how we are pushing for interdisciplinarity, and it is very powerful, but it is also challenging to teach interdisciplinarity. But if we teach them well, our graduates would be more adept at solving complex problems. And because interdisciplinarity also exposes students to many perspectives from many disciplines, it actually makes the mind of our students more agile, so that it helps in enhancing their agility as they progress. So you'll find that these are some of the key things, and it's really to address the future of the workplace. We have made lifelong learning as a key component of our educational initiatives. And in the revisions or revamp of our curriculum framework, what underpins it is a broad intellectual foundation realized by the common curriculum, flexible pathways for students to do 2 or more specializations, like double majors, a major and a minor, or a major and 2 minors. And finally, interdisciplinarity, which is about complex problem solving and the agility in the mindset of our graduates. So I have more or less articulated the key changes in our framework and the rationale behind these changes. That's the end of my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Tan. Chye and Gokul, do you have any questions to get us started with?
Yes, I can go first. Chye, is that fine?
Yes, Gokul, please.
Prof, Prof, we know that the entire industry is going through a huge transformation because of COVID. How do we plan to keep up with the pace of this transformation with regards to how jobs are changing, and how do we plan to keep our curriculum at the pace at which this transformation is happening?
Well, thank you. And in fact, that's the key reason that has been driving these changes at the undergraduate level. So we know that lifelong learning has to be a key capability of our graduates, because new things get introduced, and our graduates cannot just rely on their 4 years of university education to last for, say, 30 to 40 years of working life. If you think about it, our current thinking has always been that, well, 12 years of primary and secondary education plus 4 years of university education is enough to last for a lifetime. But that's not good enough with the rapid changes and the disruptions that we see in the industries. So you need to imbue our graduates with that capacity to learn, to keep on learning new things. All right. If you think about it, the past philosophy is preparing you for your first job and perhaps only job. But given that our graduates, even based on current statistics, are likely to change jobs 10 times throughout their entire career, and this will be more in future. It is important that we don't just prepare them for the first job. We have to prepare them for all 10 jobs. And that's why the changes. And to repeat what I've said, the broad intellectual foundation allows for learning for a lifetime. The flexible pathway is to imbue a mindset that you need to continue to specialize in different areas, and you are willing to repivot. Right? When things change, you need to repivot because whatever you know may be obsolete. Right? And interdisciplinarity is the part that allows you that agility to change. All right? Because you are exposed to multiple perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. Absolutely.
Hi, President. I have two questions with regards to your presentation. So I think the first of all is that I think I definitely see the value of being exposed to many different kinds of domain knowledge realms, especially as a former university scholars program student myself. The question that I have is when we are creating future leaders, future industry members of the world, to what extent are we creating more generalists than specialists? Because necessarily we are cutting back a bit on how we think about development of specialized knowledge in the university education system. But I would think that even when we solve complex problems, we will also need a mix of both generalists and people who really have very specific specialized domain knowledge that has to come with time to develop these skills. So I wonder if with these changes, will undergraduates be less prepared to develop these kinds of specialized knowledge because necessarily there is a cutback in the maximum amount of time they can spend on their major, especially for more professional degrees such as accountancy, engineering, that may require a lot more specialized domain knowledge in order to solve that problem. My second question would then also be, because you mentioned how our current understanding of formal education is not enough to sufficiently equip our students for the working world. So then my question would be, how then, in terms of tertiary education, it's also a very costly affair for many people. It's definitely not cheap, especially for university education. And so if we are shifting the model of education to be more stretched out throughout our lifetime, does that make education and making education in general become more specialized and more skilled in the future? Does that make things more difficult, especially for people who are more underprivileged?
Well, thank you very much, Suen. These are very good questions, and very much they are some of the key considerations when we talk about whether to make the change. Your first part about generalists versus specialists. The world needs specialists as well as generalists. All right, going in either direction, either totally general or totally specialist, is not the way to go. All right, and it often is a delicate balance. And give you an example, a lot of these digital technologies that you see, all right, are the work of software engineers, right, who can write very intricate programs, all right, to either sort of fulfill some of the very special needs of companies and industries. And these are the specialists. You cannot run away that you really need a lot of software programmers. All right. But to a company who needs this sort of technologies, you also need people who are not specialists, but who are able to leverage on the technologies. All right. We see big problems when, we see a digital gap now between people who are not at all exposed to digitization. Even some of them are graduates, all right, because the way that we are taught in the past uses very little technology, all right. And compared with, say, our younger students who are very adept, with their iPhones and all this. And you see a big problem even with cashless payment, right? Scanning a QR code. It comes easy for younger generations. But for people like me, I have to scramble, find the right app, do this, do that, even installing the app. So I think there has to be people who are able to be trained on how to leverage on technology. And if you look at it, actually, lots more people needs to be trained to be general in certain things, all right, while they are special in certain things, all right. So it's always a very delicate balance. The move in terms of reframing the academic framework is not a move towards a more general education, all right, because you see that the depth is still there. We still have a major requirement that is very substantial, right? And the major requirement could be built during the lifetime, right? So that is one, that's my response to your first question of whether it's generalist versus specialist. The second question is also very challenging. And that's something which I don't have an answer right now. You're right to point out that we have to continue learning for 40, 50 years, because if you look at our current graduate, they graduate at 22 years old if they are female, and at 24 years old if they are male. And they have to work up to age 70. That's a good 45 to 48 years, right? And you have to keep on learning. And in fact, medical doctors and studies have shown that even after you retire, it is important to keep your brain active. And the best way to keep your brain active is to continue to learn. All right, continue to do new things, learn new things. So our biggest challenge is that when a person is working, he or she will be focused on his work, his family, and many other sort of things that demand a lot of his time. And how do you continue to get a person to continue and be, persevere in his or her learning? That is a big challenge. And related to that, who is paying for it? Right. In our context, our primary, secondary education, the government pays for it. University or tertiary education, government pays a big portion of it. How about continual learning? The government actually has the skills future. All right. And the skills future will also pay for part of it. All right. And question is that, a related question, would employers pay for it? Right. Some may not. But how to make employers also recognize the importance that their workforce have to continue to learn, to keep up with the times. Very challenging. Thank you. Perhaps we can open the questions to the audience.
All right, thank you, Prof. Tan, Chye, and Gokul. The panelists will now take questions from the audience. If you wish to ask a question, please click on the raise hand button on the bottom of your screen and wait for us to call you. When it is your turn to speak, please unmute your device by clicking on the mute unmute button, which can be found along the bottom left corner of your screen, and introduce yourself. So I think let's start off. We have a few questions in chat. Let's start off that way first. So going forward, should NUS consider broadening its approach to include non-academic subjects too, or would that be duplicating current institutions such as LaSalle?
We currently already have some non-academic subjects. Life skills is one important aspect. These are usually non-credit bearing. So we sort of put it as complementary courses where students are encouraged to take. So life skills would be things like how to sort of engage with your superiors, how to engage with your subordinates, how to engage with your peers, how to sort of come across well in an interview in order to seize the job, all right, how to be confident in your work, how to communicate well, all right. All these are important life skills, which we have actually made it available. Now, if you talk about other life skills, that other interests and all this, we do have many student groups, and student groups, they come in many different shapes and sizes, and we welcome and support them. All right, that's where they can do, but we have not actually factored it into the curriculum. Right, but it is a part of the curriculum that we encourage our students to do. Thank you.
So I think somewhat related to that is a question about is a university education's key value add in its coursework, projects, or research, or is it more in the meta aspects like time management, interpersonal communications, juggling responsibilities, especially since it seems more of the latter for those who end up working outside of their initial course of study. So if so, how can we make the university education process less time consuming, more efficient, especially since students spend about 4 years?
So there are actually many sort of threads to the answers of this particular question. Some things are better taught in the classroom, some things are not. All right, if you want to talk about time management, maybe I can give you a half an hour or 15 minutes sort of debrief on that, you know, but how do you actually factor into your own habit, all right, your own style of dealing with things? That can be very personal, all right? And the other thing is that there's actually a lot of technical things to learn. And it's also accentuated by the fact that the world is more complex. Technology plays a very strong part, and you have to learn this. So I can give you an example. 20 years ago, I wouldn't have to make my graduates go through a course on computational thinking. But now I'm making every graduate, whether even in Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, to go through computational thinking, because that is an essential part. If you want to leverage on technology, you want to know how you can be more powerful with technology, you need to really have some understanding. So there's actually a lot of things to learn, all right? The third thing is that, and of course you have finite time, 4 years in the university. The third thing is that we are very mindful that the standard classroom way of learning is not effective. In fact, it's even less effective now than in the past. In the past, we have very little distractions. Nowadays, with a handphone, you have many distractions. You can have a class, you can be guaranteed that a 2-hour class, nobody will be paying attention fully to the professor in front. So that is not a good way to go. So we are actually moving also towards more experiential learning. By experiential learning, one powerful way is to, well, in the past, we do projects, right? We get projects from outside, or we get more real life projects and get the students to dirty their hands to do projects. So that has been included. We also have internships. Internships are also very powerful experiential learning. But internships, every year we have to deal with 9,000 internships. And to make sure that the companies who take the students as intern can actually provide them with work that can meaningfully be integrated into the academic learning. That one is, again, a big challenge. And the third thing is that, as is illustrated in industrial design and also in engineering, students learn the most when they are given the opportunity to create. So, for instance, our students make Formula One cars. All right, these are racing cars. Our students make their own autonomous underwater vehicles. They make their drones that can carry a human, and so on and so forth. To have a group of students actually learning the basics, and some of it not taught in class, and making this, that's a lot of very deep learning. So we are doing actually a lot of experiential learning, which is very important. So I have a very long answer to this. We can't teach everything, but those that we teach, we try as much as possible so that the learning is more effective. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Tan. Okay, I think I see a raised hand in the audience. Chye, would you like to unmute yourself and ask a question?
Hi, Prof. Tan, right? Yeah. Again, good afternoon to all of you. Yeah. As mentioned in my chat, I'm the volunteer student mentor with Faculty of Engineering, right? I think for the last 2 semesters. So from the mentorship program, I realized that students, some students are really sponsored by the company. And I have linkage with this industry in the aviation. So I have quite a number of projects that the student is much more willing to take up, because at the end of the day, he will go back to the company. Of course, the problem, first of all, is that I get the student to check whether NUS allows that, but of course, I face some hurdles, all the stuff. Anyway, I spoke to Veneto separately, so he will link you up with the faculty. However, I thought that it should have some thought in systematically have certain process to engage probably the working professional like myself from the industry to encourage these people to propose projects, propose internship, because from this company, they would have some problems, real world problems that I think students, right, can really dirty their hands and try out. And in any case, there's no I would say must guarantee a success in doing all these projects. So it's just like giving the students an experience to try out real world problems, right? And at the same time, the company benefits from it because he might be sponsored from company, right? It's like a win-win match, right? Of course, some might not be from the companies, but again, because through the mentorship, I know the student what they want to achieve for the next few years. For example, one student mentioned that he wants to be a pilot, SIA pilot. Then, of course, during this COVID period, I mentioned that you probably have to reconsider that, because a lot of pilots are jobless now. Then, of course, he mentioned that probably flight test engineer, right? So from this, I could probably link him to ST Aerospace, doing certain projects, so that he can try out during his final year project or internship. I could also recommend internship for this student during the vacations. The problem is that I don't know where's the avenue that I can, approach NUS to link these students up with ST Aerospace or, SBS Transit, etc. So I do not have this avenue to link these students with ST Aerospace or SBS Transit to do internship or projects. So there's the challenge I'm facing. I want to help the students, but I couldn't. Yeah. So I don't know whether you all can consider to think through this area to get working professional to come in, because anyway I'm doing for free, no charges. It's like part of paying back to NUS, all right, for what NUS has invested in me. I believe there are many of such Singaporeans or people want to do that, without just volunteer. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chye Hong, and thanks very much for volunteering to be a mentor. Actually, the fact that you are a mentor, the person who links you to the mentorship could be the conduit for you to link up. So currently, if you look at engineering has compulsory internships. So their internship must be 6 months long, and it is mandatory. You need to do a 6-month internship in order to graduate. And that internship is credit bearing. So it takes about 12 MCs for that particular internship, or the equivalent of 3 modules, right? So the engineering do have a system of linking students with companies. And if you are one of those colleagues who can help us link, because a lot of it depends on whether we have very good companies with good problems, all right? We'll be happy to solve them. So if we can take this offline, since you have been in touch with Bernard To of OAR, I'll be happy to sort of make sure that this is put in place. There is already a system in place. There is a coordinator in the Faculty of Engineering that actually oversees internship for their students, right? And perhaps there are some gaps, and we'll be happy to plug the gaps. Thank you.
May I just have one more point, is that from the mentorship, right, students would like to do more internships, right, beside the official 6 months. So for example, these mentees that I had, he's interested to do the December vacation, 1 month internship. Is like unofficial. So these mentees who like to really, during the vacations, right, even 1 month, 2 months for the next 4 years, want to go to companies to learn. Again, there isn't any very structured way to get the students that even if they want to do it in 1 month or 2 months during their vacations, are there such avenues, right? Of course, I can link them with the company. I told the student, even though I can link with the company, first of all, there might be no money involved, because you want to have internship in a company for 1 month, this December to January. I said, I think no company will want to take you in and pay you even $500 just to do 1 month internship. So you might be prepared to volunteer, without money involved. So it's good to encourage students to take more internships, like 1 month, 2 month vacation for the next 4 years, right? Because they will go to different companies. And of course, myself can link this student up to many different companies, right? Being land, air, probably marines, etc. So I have the network, right? But there is still some red tapes that I can't really do it freely. Like I said, a student, I have this company, just go to the HR there 1 month without money involved. I don't think NUS can have this kind of flexibility. So that's my thoughts. Thanks.
Thanks, Chye Hong. Yes, there is a framework, and we will let you have the connection. It's with the Center for Future Ready Graduates. And we even have a digital platform also for our students for paid or unpaid internships. All right, thanks.
Okay. Just to open up the field a little bit, we have a question for all the panelists from Chye. So how excited are our students towards this interdisciplinary approach? He would also like to share his wish list as an employer for students to be adequately exposed to entrepreneurship, as it provides relevant context and exposure to our ever and demands. and prospective candidates sometimes lack the mindset to embrace changes to overcome uncertainties.
Thank you, Ben. And thank you, Taizi. So Taizi is one of the first few. I have been engaging alumni, select groups of alumni, as well as employers about these changes. In fact, there's been more than a year when all these were floated back then in June last year. All right. And these are only two of the 5 big changes coming. All right. What I've articulated today are only 2 of the 5. There are 3 other big changes that we'll be announcing soon. But they all come in the same light to better prepare our students. And how are the students sort of welcoming this? I think this year we were pretty lucky and comforted. I think these are big changes for engineering, for science, for arts and social sciences, and also for school of design environment. This year, if we look at our admissions for this coming August, we have a 7% improvement. And we look at first choice, people who had applied to NUS and were accepted and applied to one of these 4 faculties as first choice and also accepted our offer. It now exceeds 70%, which is actually a tremendous record in the sense that we usually hover around 64, 65%. This year, for these 4 faculties, it shoot up to 71%. I think part of it also that my colleagues have been working very hard to communicate the new changes and the benefits that has been put in place. I think I have articulated some of the benefits that, for instance, there's the flexibility. Now you don't have to choose electrical engineering first. All right, you just go into faculty engineering, you can choose any other thing. You can even choose architecture from engineering and then move over to architecture after that. All right, so there is a lot of flexibility now. And it gives our students time to think about what they really want as a specialization. So we're quite happy that this is a good sign. And we have many employers whom we have talked to, and they are willing to come forth and say that, well, you know, they endorse this particular change and they look forward to hiring our graduates. All right. Several employers have already done that, and that was done at the launch of the College of Humanities and Sciences. And for the common curriculum engineering and also design, we have 50 employers, 50, coming up to endorse and to basically go out publicly that, you know, they support this change. All right. And they'll be happy to take on. So I think we are quite heartened by the reception. Thank you.
All right. Does the panel have anything else to say on this? Swen, Gokul?
I think from the student perspective, definitely, I do think that students are excited for the interdisciplinary approach. But I think we have such a wide mix of students, right? So we'll have people who will always be more interested in the broad-based side, and people who are more interested in going straight and doing the specialization that they want to have. And I think ultimately we try to strike that balance, and that is useful. I saw that there's a wish list for students to be exposed to entrepreneurship because it allows for students to have greater problem solving. And I definitely agree that I don't think it's just limited to entrepreneurship settings whereby we have to come together to solve problems. Entrepreneurship is one excellent way to do it, and I do see a lot of students going for that under the NUS Overseas College program, for example, NUS Entrepreneurship. But I see in many ways, as a student leader myself, many other students who also try to step up, embrace changes, overcome uncertainties in all their different aspects in student life, student activities, try to make their own change in the community. And I definitely think there's a lot of ways in which we can develop students to have the mindset to become more resilient and to become proactive and to have more initiative in taking charge of their futures, which I definitely do see that amongst the students. And I do think with the ability to interface with different faculties, interface with different kinds of specializations, we actually create a better culture where we can collaborate between multiple faculties to create better solutions and also to be able to reach out towards them.
Thank you. I'd like to add to what Sue Ann has said. Actually, Sue Ann has graduated from also the law faculty as well as the USP program, the University Scholars Program. And the Scholars Program is really our very first attempt at an interdisciplinary common curriculum, because students in the Scholars Program would have to take a suite of 12 modules, right, to complement their majors. And these 12 modules are very broad intellectually and very interdisciplinary. But the challenge is that USP is only open to 180 students a year. And this year, in August, the common curriculum, as I've mentioned earlier, is accessible to 4,300 students a year. So that's a huge jump in terms of scale, right? For a university like NUS, where we take in 7,500 students, scale is very important, all right? I want to make sure that whatever we have is accessible to all students. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Tan. I think Janice has a question for us. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi, greetings from Shanghai.
Hey, hi.
Hi, Prof. Thank you so much for this. And I find it very, very beneficial. I think I myself is a product of interdisciplinary program, but I spent 10 years in NUS, which is 2 faculties and 3 departments. So I'm really very, very excited. So I'm really very excited for the newer students having this opportunity to cut short this interdisciplinary learning. And I also mentor an international student a few months back, Indonesian, and he's very, very positive. So he blends in well the Singapore NUS culture. I have a son that's returning. So what I hope is that he's excited about joining NUS, but he's very worried that he cannot blend in with the local culture. So with this interdisciplinary program that you have in mind, I hope that you will also look at the soft aspect to help returning Singaporeans, kids who have not been, who have not studied in Singapore before, to be able to immerse in the NUS culture. Yeah, so that is.
Thank you. Very good point. You'll find that our university, NUS, is actually very global in orientation. We have actually also a lot of foreign students from many different nationalities. And one thing that we do, and I think we do pretty well, is how to integrate them, right? So we actually do quite a bit of social engineering. For instance, we spread them across the different halls and RCs. Even in terms of classes, we don't want to encourage clustering. So we mix the classes because we always feel that diversity has very strong potential. You have a very diverse class, people from different nationalities, people with very different background, people with very different interests coming together, all right, to study a common cause. That is very powerful, all right, because the exchanges and all this, all right. So have no fear. I'm sure your children and other sort of students from overseas can fit in well. We are actually a very collegial we have a very collegial environment, and we want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable and safe, right, whenever they are on campus.
I was locally.
If you want more details, feel free, to drop us a note. We'll be happy to provide you.
All the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Janice.
One thing you mentioned that you spent 10 years in NUS with 3 departments. So what are the degrees that you have gotten? I like to know about people who are actually very multi-talented, you know, they have so many interests and they spend time actually specializing.
Well, I tell you, end of the day, I'm now a homemaker. So after studying so many years, yeah, but I was from science. I went into ISE, so Industrial and System Engineering. I probably have met you there sometime. And then I went into civil engineering. But yeah, I was a PhD dropout, so I ended up with 2 masters. Yeah.
Oh, very good, very good. Oh, you never know. You may want to pick up your PhD again.
I could plan in because I was locally nurtured. So I went through the pressure cooker system. And international joining NUS, they are probably also from their local system where they are under a lot of pressure to do well and therefore good enough to join NUS. But IB student, IB program, International Baccalaureate, the focus is not so much on grades. It's more on teamwork, it's less on pressure, more on your agility, your ability to work with people. So they have not gone through that true pressure that, you know, what we have gone through. So therefore, a lot of IB students, Singaporeans, that means returning IB Singaporean students, that feeling of not able to integrate is very real. And yeah, so therefore, I hope that, you know, this small portion, however small, of this overseas returning Singaporeans, you know, help them integrate. Because I'm so proud to be an NUS graduate, and I hope to see, you know, my kids and other new returning Singaporeans be able to join and enjoy the program.
Well, thank you very much, Janice. And I would say that our system is also quite a pressure cooker, but we have been trying hard to actually soften things. You may know that we have a very unique SU system in NUS. So they have 10 modules, and Sue-Ann can tell you a lot. I don't know how many SU she has taken. Satisfactory or unsatisfactory. So it's S/U. Student can choose up to 10 modules. They can take the modules, and then they can look at the grades after the exam and decide whether to have these grades included in the GPA or CAP calculation, cumulative average point calculation. All right, and they have 10 modules that they can do that over the 4 years period. And the whole idea is that we want our students not to just focus in one area, but to try different areas. But students are sometimes afraid to, you know, take risks. So we say, well, if you're afraid to take risks, you just go and take, you look at the grade. If you like to keep the grade, you keep it. If you don't want, you just, you know, you will just be a pass or fail. All right. So that actually was very welcome, because at least for our guys who have finished national service, after 2 years of not going into classroom, their engines are a bit slower to start. So that SU actually works very well in the first year for especially the male students, right? But it works well actually for all. And this is one of our efforts to soften the pressure. One other quick statistic that you may not know, 50% of our courses don't have final exams. 50. My time, every course has a final exam. Yeah. Now, 50% don't have final exams. So you can see that we have changed, all right? But still, I think it's still the Singapore context that our students work very hard at their grades. Over.
Okay, as we are running out of time, can we give the last question to Samantha? Can I request that you keep it short as well? Please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, Prof. Tan. Thanks for sharing. So I'm a career coach, so I work with professionals when it comes to their career management. I think one of the biggest challenge that I notice in the workforce right now, be it undergrads that I work with or even professionals who have been in the workforce for some time is, in fact, there's a lot of initiative by the government, by the schools when it comes to upgrading, upscaling, new scaling, all these bombastic words. But I think one of the huge challenge that most people or most individuals face is the lack of personal clarity. That means to say what's next after they upgrade. And sometimes a lot of people just go with the trend, like, hey, oh, data science is the in thing, so everybody start doing data science. But they have really that that information of like how is it going to integrate with their current skill set or their strength and talent is very much lacking. So I just like to understand from the university standpoint, which I think education really starts way before, right? How will university prepare their students so that while they are navigating in their career, while they are, figuring out what is next for themselves, how do they gain that? How does the school come in to help them to gain that kind of personal clarity, which I think is very much lacking in today's context?
Yeah, thank you. I may have a very long answer to your question because it's not an easy question. But the short answer is that currently, as part of career preparation, all right, we do bring our students through the different stages of thinking. All right, you're right that while many comes very focused, there are also others who don't come focused. All right, and they are good and bad, right? You can come very focused, but what if you don't get what you want? And then how do you actually respond to that? That is also another challenge, right? So that has to do with embracing failure. But if you come without knowing what you want, we have a sort of a roadmap for our students so that we can guide them along the way. So that's to refine their thinking. And we feel that as they become more mature through exposures, through internships, through their coursework, then they can firm up on what they want to do. But you are right also to say that sometimes after a person has graduated, the person still doesn't know what he or she wants to do. Now, second thing is that we have a Career Plus app, which has just been launched to all students. The Career Plus app claws information from all the job portals, and it gives you an idea on what are the competencies that are needed for different types of jobs. Say I want to be a data analyst, I want to be an accountant, I want to be a data engineer, and so on and so forth, right? It will claw information. And if you are a student, then what you have read up to this point in time would also show up in terms of the competencies that you have. And this Career Plus app would be able to address the gap in competencies and recommend to the student, oh, if you want to be a data engineer, you are still missing a few competencies, which you should read from these courses. So this is part of academic advising that we built into this app, and which can guide students, right, electronically, at least for 90% of the students, before he or she comes to a career coach, right? And that, in a way, would simplify. So the Career Plus app is now launched and made available to students. Actually, we want to make the Career Plus app available to all continuing education learners, lifelong learners, because the same concept works. If a graduate wants to repivot, he or she would like to know what are the skills and what are the things that he or she can learn from the university sort of programs that we have, right? So that's one part of it. We also have many other things. Our Center for Future Ready Graduates also have career coaches, right? But they are available when the student when they are still students, right? One challenge is that if we have a huge number of CET learners, right? Many of them could be our graduates. Then can we think of a way to also provide career coaches, or at least allow them to have access to a group of career coaches who can actually also help them as they repivot, all right, to new disciplines. So these are some of the foundational thoughts that we have. All right, it may not fully answer your question, but we understand the issues, and we have some way of addressing them. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Tan, Suwen, and Gokul for your insightful sharing. And a big thank you to everyone for joining us for a conversation with NUS President, organized by NUS Alumni Relations. Also, do stay tuned on our alumni website and social media channels for more upcoming events. Thank you, everyone, for your support.